You ever hear your name in a conversation you were never supposed to be part of? That's how I found out what my family really thought of me. I'm Marcus, 34, and for most of my adult life, I've been the guy who helps. Quietly, consistently. No announcements, no reminders, just silent support, paying a bill here, covering a rent payment there, sending grocery money when someone forgot. There's at home. I don't have kids or a spouse, and I've done all right in IT consulting. So when my cousin Jeremy and his wife got evicted last year, it was a no-brainer to help them get back on their feet. I paid the deposit on a new place for them, co-signed the lease, even set up auto-pay for their rent so they wouldn't fall behind again. I told them it was temporary. They nodded like they understood. That was 14 months ago. Jeremy and I used to be close. We were practically raised as brothers, sleepovers, school runs, holidays. Our parents leaned on each other, and in turn, so did we. But as adults, we drifted. I became the techie one, head down, always working, while he was the fun one, hopping from one idea to another. A clothing brand, a podcast, a food truck. Every new hustle burned bright, then flamed out. When he needed help, I helped. Not because I was naive, but because I genuinely thought, if I were in his shoes, I'd want someone to believe in me too. Last Thursday, I gave him a quick call. Just a casual check-in. He picked up on the second ring, breathless, like he'd been running around. "Hey, man. Sorry, give me a sec," he said. I heard some rustling, a door closing, then silence. "Okay, what's up?" "Just checking in," I said. "Rent's due Monday, so I wanted to see if you guys were okay on your end before the auto pay kicks in." He laughed. "Man, you're too responsible. We're good. Appreciate it." "All right," I said. "Cool." We hung up, or so I thought. I was still holding the phone when I heard a voice. His wife, Michelle. "What did he want?" she asked. "Rent check-in," Jeremy snorted. "He acts like we'd perish without him. Dude thinks paying our bills makes him important or something." "Seriously," Michelle said. "He's such a weirdo. Quiet, creepy energy. I still don't get how he got rich." My chest tightened. I didn't speak. Didn't hang up. I just listened. For nearly 2 minutes, I heard them make a game out of mocking me. Jeremy called me a money martyr. Michelle said I was emotionally constipated. At one point, he even joked that if I ever stopped paying, they'd just fake an emergency to guilt-trip me again. They laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I ended the call and stared at my screen. The call duration read, for minutes, 19 seconds. I sat there, stunned, in the same chair I used every month to double-check their lease balance before sending the payment through. For 14 months, I'd paid nearly $1,900 a month on their behalf. No questions asked. And this is what they thought of me? I wish I could say I felt angry right away. But I didn't. I felt embarrassed. Small. Like the butt of a joke in a room full of people I thought respected me. That night, I didn't sleep. I just laid there with my eyes open, remembering every moment I had ever defended Jeremy. When our uncle called him a failure, I defended him. When his mom cried to me about his mounting debt, I told her to give him time. When my own dad told me I was being taken advantage of, I said, "No, he's trying." The next morning, I didn't cancel the rent payment. Not yet. That would have been too easy, too predictable. I needed time to process this, to sit with the betrayal, to let it sting enough that I wouldn't backtrack when they came crawling. Because they would come crawling. I didn't mention the call. Not to Jeremy. Not to Michelle. I didn't text. Didn't reply to a meme he sent me later that night like nothing had happened. I just went quiet. I started revisiting the lease agreement, reading it more carefully. I looked into the terms of my co-signature. I ran numbers. I called a friend of mine who works in tenant-landlord law. Then I waited. Rent day approached. Monday morning came with the usual flood of work emails. And right in the middle of a client meeting, I got a text from Jeremy. "Yo, you good?" Rent didn't process. I ignored it. Then another. "Think something's wrong with the account. Can you check?" An hour later, Marcus. Michelle messaged too. "Hey, just wondering if there was a glitch with rent. Can you rescind it?" That afternoon, I got a phone call. I didn't answer. Then another. Then a third, from an unknown number, probably using someone else's phone. By evening, I had 14 messages and 3 missed calls. Tuesday, I went for a long walk after work. The city was cold, but the air was good for my thoughts. I kept replaying that phone call over and over. Not just the words, but the tone, the casual cruelty, the condescension, the entitlement. I thought about how I'd enabled it, about how I'd made it easy for them to believe I owed them. I remembered Thanksgiving last year. How they showed up late to dinner without so much as a pie, but still managed to complain that the turkey was dry and the chairs were uncomfortable. I remembered Christmas, how I gave them a $500 gift card and Jeremy joked, "Wow, just five this year?" I remembered Michelle pulling me aside that night to ask if I could loan them an extra $1,200 so they could visit her parents in Florida. Just for flights, she said. "You know we'd pay you back, eventually." Rent day passed. Then 2 more days. No payment. No response from me. By Friday, Jeremy sent a longer message. "Hey, I don't know what's going on, man. If something's up, just talk to me. We've always been honest with each other. You know I appreciate you, right?" I stared at that message for a long time. Honest. Appreciate. I laughed. Not bitterly. Not with anger. Just a dry, humorless laugh that came from somewhere deep. I picked up my phone, opened the lease folder again, and clicked on the document I drafted 3 days ago but hadn't sent yet. My hand hovered over the send button. Not yet, I told myself. Not until it hurts a little more. I was still waiting for Monday. Because Monday wasn't just any day. It was renewal day. And they didn't know I'd made a few quiet phone calls of my own. Monday came like thunder after a long, still silence. Jeremy texted me first thing in the morning, a breezy, "Hey man, can we hop on a call? Need to chat before the renewal hits," grimacing face dot. The smiley at the end felt like a slap. Like we were still in on some unspoken inside joke. Like he hadn't called me a joke to my face without realizing I was still listening. I didn't reply. Then Michelle tried. "Morning, Marcus. Just wanted to confirm we're good to go with the lease. Can't believe it's already been a year. Time flies." For exclamation points. Like the last week hadn't happened. I waited until lunchtime. Then I sent one message. "Hey, I've reviewed the lease and decided not to renew. I'm removing my name from the agreement effective today. You'll need to make arrangements with the landlord directly." Jeremy replied instantly. "What? Wait, what are you talking about? You can't just do that." Then, "Dude, be serious." Then, "You know we can't get approved without you. We've talked about this." I stared at the thread, letting each bubble appear without response. It took him 6 more messages to shift from confusion to rage. "Is this a punishment or something? You're gonna do this to us because of one missed payment." One missed payment. That's what it boiled down to for him. Not the phone call. Not the laughter. Not the year of quiet support. Just one missed payment. By 4 p.m., I got a call from the landlord. A polite man named Craig who I'd only spoken to once when I first co-signed. "Hi Marcus," he said. "Jeremy informed me you'd like to be removed from the lease?" "That's right. And you're not planning to renew?" "Correct. I'll need something in writing." "I've already emailed it," I said. "And just so you're aware, I won't be financially responsible for any unpaid rent going forward. That ends today." He paused. "Understood. I'll follow up with them about next steps." It was done. Or so I thought. At 6:37 p.m., my mom called. Now, for context, my mom is the kind of woman who doesn't like family drama. Which is ironic, because she somehow ends up at the center of all of it. She's Jeremy's aunt, but always treated us like equals. Growing up, she'd insist we share everything, even our punishments. If Jeremy broke a window and I didn't stop him, we were both grounded. She believed in harmony at all costs. Which, as I got older, started to feel more like avoid upsetting the wrong people. "Marcus," she began, skipping the hello. "What's going on with Jeremy?" I kept my voice calm. "I decided not to renew the lease." "That's it." "Why? You've been helping them all year. What changed?" I almost said it. Almost blurted out the truth. But I stopped myself. Not because I was protecting them, but because I knew how this conversation would go. She'd tell me I was being dramatic. That people say things they don't mean. That I misinterpreted. So instead, I said, "I just realized I've been enabling a situation that isn't healthy for me." There was a pause. "That's really disappointing," she said. "They're family, Marcus. You can't just walk away when it's inconvenient." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Inconvenient? You know what's disappointing?" I said, voice still steady. "Being laughed at behind your back by the people you support." "What do you mean?" "I heard them, Mom," I said. "They forgot to hang up after a call. I heard every word. And I've heard enough." She didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was quieter. "I'm sure they didn't mean it." There it was. I hung up. That night, I got a string of messages from Jeremy that bounced between outrage and desperation. "You're really doing this?" Followed by, "Come on, man, we're family." And finally, "If we get kicked out, that's on you." I I didn't reply. Michelle tried next. Her tone was different, performatively calm. Look, if this is about something we said, let's just talk about it. We're under a lot of stress and maybe we said something dumb, but you know we care about you. I stared at that message for a long time. They didn't say, we're sorry. They didn't own it. Just a vague something dumb. I could have replied. Could have sent them the transcript of the call. Could have let the facts speak for themselves. But I realized something more satisfying than confrontation: silence. A clean, final silence. One they couldn't manipulate. One they couldn't guilt-trip their way around. I blocked both their numbers that night. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of a final blow-up. I wanted them to sit in the discomfort of not knowing what I'd do next. I wanted them to wonder, every time a payment bounced or a call went unanswered, whether I was listening. Because I was. For 14 months, I'd listened. I'd paid. I'd supported. And for what? A joke they thought I'd never hear. The next week, Craig, the landlord, emailed me to confirm Jeremy and Michelle hadn't responded to his request to reapply under their own names. They had 10 days to either requalify for the lease or vacate. That's when the calls started coming from other family members. My uncle, my cousin from Philly, even my dad, who never usually got involved. Apparently, Jeremy had started spinning his own version of the story, that I'd suddenly turned on them, that I was being cruel, that they were blindsided. They left out the part where they called me a joke. They left out the part where they laughed at my generosity. And now? Now they were running out of days and excuses. The first eviction notice landed on their doorstep exactly 9 days after my name was officially removed from the lease. A printed envelope, discreetly taped to their door by the building's management company, neatly folded and stamped, "Notice to vacate, final warning." I didn't know that from Jeremy, of course. I knew it from a neighbor, Alyssa, who'd once DM'd me to thank me for helping Jeremy when he and Michelle first moved in. She and I had exchanged a few messages back then, mostly about logistics, packages, building maintenance, etc. She messaged me out of the blue that Friday. "Hey Marcus, I don't mean to get involved, but Jeremy and Michelle got an eviction notice this morning. Everything okay?" I just replied, "Everything's unfolding the way it was always going to." Alyssa didn't push, just reacted with a neutral emoji and let it drop. That same day, I got an email from Michelle. Not a message. An email. Subject? From Michelle. "Can we talk? Hi Marcus. I hope you're doing okay. I know things have gotten tense, and I hate that it's come to this. Whatever misunderstanding happened, I'm sure it wasn't intentional. Jeremy's been under a lot of pressure, and I know he says stupid things sometimes when he's stressed. But you've always been family. Can we meet for coffee or something and just clear the air? We really need your help right now." There it was again, misunderstanding. And the classic pivot, pretending they didn't mean it, that it was some stress-related fluke. No acknowledgement of what they actually said. No apology. Just a soft appeal to sympathy. A reset button. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my legal contact, just in case they tried anything further. I wasn't taking chances. I'd seen people twist stories fast when money was involved, and if they were willing to trash me to my face, well, unknowingly, who knew what they'd spin now? By Monday, my mom called again. Twice. I ignored both calls. On her third attempt, I finally picked up. "I needed to get this conversation over with. I just don't understand what you're doing," she said. No hello. No pause. I said nothing. "Marcus, this isn't you," she added. "You don't hold grudges." "I don't," I said. "But I also don't pretend I wasn't insulted when I clearly was." "You're being petty." "I'm being precise," I said flatly. "I gave, they took, and then they mocked me for giving. That's not a grudge. That's a boundary." She sighed. "What happened to compassion?" "Compassion? Mom, I gave them 14 months of rent. I co-signed a lease. I paid for groceries, utilities, Uber rides. That was compassion. What you're asking for now is obedience. You're asking me to keep giving no matter how they treat me." She went quiet for a moment. "I'm asking you to forgive your family." "I did," I said. "But forgiving someone doesn't mean you let them keep your credit score hostage." That's when the conversation ended. She hung up without another word. For the next few days, I got nothing but silence. No messages. No calls. It was eerie, like the calm before a storm. I knew Jeremy. I knew how his brain worked. He wasn't the type to sit still and wait for consequences. He was the type to flail, to pull others into his panic, to do something loud to create chaos and distract from the fact that he'd failed to take responsibility. Sure enough, the explosion came Friday night. I was on my way home from the gym when my phone buzzed with a Twitter notification. Then another. And another. Jeremy had posted a thread. A public one. When help turns into control. A cautionary tale from my own cousin. He spun it like a sob story. Said he'd humbly accepted help from a family member, but that I'd used money to manipulate and humiliate him. He claimed I waited for the worst possible moment to pull out of the lease, risking homelessness for a young couple trying to rebuild. He framed it like I was punishing him for setting boundaries. I read the whole thread 3 times. My stomach tightened, not because I believed anyone would fall for it, but because of how strategic it was. He used just enough vague phrasing, just enough self-deprecation to make himself seem sympathetic. And worst of all, he didn't name me, which meant I couldn't defend myself without naming him. And then I would look like the bad guy. It was cowardly, calculated, and effective. The replies rolled in. Wow, your cousin sounds toxic. Cut him off. You don't owe him anything. Some people weaponize generosity, it's abuse. Abuse. That word hit harder than I expected. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. But I took screenshots. Every line. Every lie. I added it to the growing folder I'd titled Jeremy, just in case. Because here's the thing about people like Jeremy. They think a dramatic story will shield them from reality. They think public sympathy is stronger than legal accountability. The Twitter thread went semi-viral. Not viral in the millions of views kind of way, but enough that Jeremy got the little dopamine hit he was clearly craving. A few hundred retweets, a couple thousand likes, and a comment section full of strangers validating his victim complex. For 2 whole days, he basked in it. He even pinned the thread and added a selfie of himself and Michelle sitting on a couch with their arms around each other and the caption, "No matter what we go through it together." And for those same 2 days, I said nothing. No statement. No subtweets. No clarification. Instead, I forwarded everything screenshots of the thread, texts, the phone call transcript to Craig, the landlord. I'd already warned him about potential social media fallout and reputational slander, especially considering Jeremy's post made vague references to the negligent landlord who allowed this to happen. Craig wasn't pleased. In fact, Craig had been watching Jeremy for months. You see, what Jeremy hadn't realized was that during those 14 months of rent support, he'd made more than just enemies with me. He'd been consistently late on utilities, left trash in the stairwell despite repeated warnings, and gotten noise complaints from 3 different neighbors. He coasted through his lease because I was the safety net. The one who cleaned up behind the scenes, who made late-night apologies to building staff on his behalf, who offered extra payments to make up for his irresponsibility. Without me, there was no buffer. The landlord moved fast. Within 48 hours of Jeremy's thread, he issued a formal notice of breach of lease, citing both the public defamation and existing violations. It wasn't just about unpaid rent anymore, it was conduct, defamation, failure to communicate. And with me no longer on the lease, there was nothing left propping him up. I didn't tell Jeremy what was coming. I wanted him to feel it this time. On the 3rd day, I got another message. Not from him, but from Michelle. This time, she wasn't calm. You need to fix this. The building is trying to evict us. Craig said you sent him your little folder of lies. This is harassment. You're obsessed with ruining us. I didn't reply. I blocked her instead. That afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to it. Hi, Marcus. This is Eric from the City Wire. I'm a freelance writer following up on a thread we saw on Twitter that's been getting traction. Jeremy pointed us to you as the cousin in question. We're preparing a story on financial abuse within families and wanted to give you a chance to comment. I paused the voicemail. You what? I played the rest. If you'd like to share your side, let us know. Otherwise, the piece should run Friday morning. Thanks. He was going to escalate it to the media. At that point, I had 2 options. Sit back and let this ridiculous fantasy become someone's clickbait headline, or quietly, cleanly, in the story with facts. So I responded, not to the media, not to Jeremy, but to the source of the money. See, one thing Jeremy had forgotten, maybe conveniently, maybe because he never cared to understand, is that I hadn't just been paying rent. I'd also been covering their utilities, cell phones, Wi-Fi, all of it, neatly bundled into autopays I'd set up to avoid interruption. And every single one of those services was under my name. So I canceled them, not maliciously, not as an act of revenge, as a form of closure. First, the Wi-Fi. Done. Then their phone lines. Gone. Then the electricity. I gave the provider a forwarding address and removed myself as the account holder. The only one I left alone was the water, just enough to keep it humane. By Thursday evening, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Marcus, what are you doing? Jeremy's voice. Panicked. The internet's down, the phones are off, Michelle's parents can't reach us, and now we got a damn call saying the lights are going off tomorrow? Are you kidding me? You're actually trying to get us thrown out on the street. You're a psychopath. Another message followed 2 minutes later. You win. Okay. You win. Is that what you want to hear? Are you happy now? No. Not happy. But free? Absolutely. That night, I posted a single message to Twitter. Not as a rebuttal. Not even as a clapback. Just context. 14 months. $1,900 per month rent. $230 per month utilities. $110 per month phone. $90 per month Wi-Fi. Groceries, gas money, ride shares, holiday gifts. Over $30,000 given, without a contract, without a complaint. They forgot to hang up one day. I heard what they really thought of me. That was the only conversation I needed. I didn't tag Jeremy. I didn't reply to comments. I didn't even log back in after I posted it. But apparently, it hit. By morning, his original thread was swarmed. People had found mine. Compared timelines. Screenshotted receipts. His supporters turned on him fast. The narrative collapsed. A few even messaged me privately, apologizing for believing his side. I didn't reply to them either. This wasn't about validation. I wasn't looking for applause. I was just done. On Saturday morning, Craig emailed me again. Simple and professional. Tenants vacated overnight. Left a mess. Thank you for the heads up earlier this month. Saved us a lot of trouble. Hope you're well. That was the final closure. I never heard from Jeremy or Michelle again. I assume they moved in with one of her sisters or friends, or maybe back in with Michelle's parents, whom they'd once mocked for being too old school. Either way, I didn't care. In the weeks that followed, the silence in my life felt unfamiliar at first. No more passive-aggressive texts, no more guilt-tripped favors, no more late-night calls about emergency car repairs or sudden medical bills. Just peace. One night a month later, I sat at my desk doing taxes, and I realized that not having them in my life had saved me almost $3,000 that month alone. I laughed. Not bitterly, just freely. I took myself out for dinner that night. Sat by the window of a little Korean barbecue spot I liked, ordered enough for two, and didn't feel guilty. Didn't explain myself. Didn't feel like I owed anyone anything. As the server poured my water, she smiled and said, "Celebrating something?" I smiled back. "Yeah," I said. "Finally am."